Azerbaijan is situated in the Caucasus region of Eurasia. Three physical features dominate Azerbaijan: the Caspian Sea, whose shoreline forms a natural boundary to the east, the Greater Caucasus mountain range to the north, and the extensive flatlands at the country's center. About the size of Portugal or the state of Maine, Azerbaijan has a total land area of approximately 86,600 square kilometers, less than 1% of the land area of the former Soviet Union. Of the three Transcaucasian states, Azerbaijan has the greatest land area. Special administrative subdivisions of the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, which is separated from the rest of Azerbaijan by a strip of Armenian territory, and the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Region, entirely within Azerbaijan. Located in the region of the southern Caucasus Mountains, Azerbaijan borders the Caspian Sea to the east, Georgia and Russia to the north, Iran to the south, and Armenia to the southwest and west. A small part of Nakhchivan also borders Turkey to the northwest. The capital of Azerbaijan is the ancient city of Baku, which has the largest and best harbor on the Caspian Sea and has long been the center of the republic's oil industry. Topography and drainage. The elevation changes over a relatively short distance from a lowlands to highlands. Nearly half the country is considered mountainous. Notable physical features of the gently undulating hills of the subtropical southeastern coast, which are covered with tea plantations, orange groves, and lemon groves. Numerous mud volcanoes and mineral springs in the ravines of Kobustan Mountain near Baku, and coastal terrain that lies as much as 28 meters below sea level. Except for its eastern Caspian shoreline and some areas bordering Georgia and Iran, Azerbaijan is ringed by mountains. To the northeast, bordering Russia's Dagestan Autonomous Republic, is the Greater Caucasus Range. To the west, bordering Armenia, is the Lesser Caucasus Range. To the extreme southeast, the Talish Mountains form part of the border with Iran. The highest elevations occur in the Greater Caucasus, where Mount Bizarre-Uzi rises 4,466 meters above sea level. 8 large rivers flow down from the Caucasus Ranges into the central Ura-Aris lowlands, alluvial flatlands and low delta areas along the seacoast designated by the Azerbaijani name for the Mtkvari River and its main tributary, the Aris. The Mtkvari, the longest river in the Caucasus region, forms the delta and drains into the Caspian a short distance downstream from the confluence with the Aris. The Minjchor Reservoir, with an area of 605 square kilometers that makes it the largest body of water in Azerbaijan, was formed by damming the Ura in western Azerbaijan. The waters of the reservoir provide hydroelectric power and irrigation of the Ura-Aris plain. Most of the country's rivers are not navigable. About 15% of the land in Azerbaijan is arable. Mountains. Azerbaijan is nearly surrounded by mountains. The Greater Caucasus Range, with the country's highest elevations, lies in the north along the border with Russia and runs southeast to the Absheron Peninsula on the Caspian Sea. The country's highest peak, Bizarre-Uzdagi, rises to 4,485 meters in this range near the Azerbaijan-Russia border. The Lesser Caucasus Range, with elevations up to 3,500 meters, lies to the west along the border with Armenia. The Talish Mountains form part of the border with Iran at the southeast tip of the country. Kobustan Mountain, located near Baku, is carved by deep ravines, from which bubble mud volcanoes and mineral springs. Climate. Temperature. The climate varies from subtropical and humid in the southeast to subtropical and dry in central central and eastern Azerbaijan. Along the shores of the Caspian Sea it is temperate, while the higher mountain elevations are generally cold. Baku, on the Caspian, enjoys mild weather that averages 4 degrees Celsius in January and 25 degrees Celsius in July. Rainfall, physiographic conditions and different atmosphere circulations admit 8 types of air currents including continental, sea, Arctic, tropical currents of air that formulates the climate of the republic. The maximum annual precipitation falls in Lencaran and the minimum in Absaron. The maximum daily precipitation of 334 mm was observed at the Bilisa station in 1955. Environmental problems. Air and water pollution are widespread and pose great challenges to economic development. Major sources of pollution include oil refineries and chemical and metallurgical industries, which in the early 1990s continued to operate as inefficiently as they had in the Soviet era. Air quality is extremely poor in Baku, the center of oil refining. Some reports have described Baku's air as the most polluted in the former Soviet Union, and other industrial centers suffer similar problems. The Caspian Sea, including Baku Bay, has been polluted by oil leakages and the dumping of raw or inadequately treated sewage, reducing the yield of caviar and fish. In the Soviet period, Azerbaijan was pressed to use extremely heavy applications of pesticides to improve its output of scarce subtropical crops for the rest of the Soviet Union. The continued regular use of the pesticide DDT in the 1970s and 1980s was an egregious lapse, although that chemical was officially banned in the Soviet Union because of its toxicity to humans. Excessive application of pesticides and chemical fertilizers has caused extensive groundwater pollution and has been linked by Azerbaijani scientists to birth defects and illnesses. Rising water levels in the Caspian Sea, mainly caused by natural factors exacerbated by man-made structures, have reversed the decades-long drying trend and now threaten coastal areas. The average level rose 1.5 meters between 1978 and 1993. Because of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, large numbers of trees were felled, roads were built through pristine areas, and large expanses of agricultural land were occupied by military forces. Like other former Soviet republics, Azerbaijan faces a gigantic environmental cleanup complicated by the economic uncertainties left in the wake of the Moscow-centered planning system. The Committee for the Protection of the Natural Environment is part of the Azerbaijani government, but in the early 1990s it was ineffective at targeting critical applications of limited funds, establishing pollution standards, or monitoring compliance with environmental regulations. Early in 1994, plans called for Azerbaijan to participate in the International Caspian Sea Forum, sponsored by the European Union. Natural hazards, droughts and floods, some lowland areas threatened by rising levels of the Caspian Sea environment. Current issues. Local scientists consider the Absaronya Cyclogy and the Caspian Sea to be the ecologically most devastated area in the world because of severe air, water, and soil pollution. Soil pollution results from the use of DDT as a pesticide and also from toxic defoliants used in the production of cotton. Environment. International agreements. Party 2. Air pollution, biodiversity, climate change, desertification, endangered species, hazardous wastes, marine dumping, ozone layer protection, ship pollution, wetlands. Signed, but not ratified. None. Area and boundaries. Area total 86,600 square kilometers. Country comparison to the world 113. Land 82,629 square kilometers. Water 3,971 square kilometers. Note: includes the exclave of Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic and the Nagorno-Karabakh region. The region's autonomy was abolished by Azerbaijani Supreme Soviet on November 26, 1991. Area comparative. Australia comparative, larger than Tasmania. Canada comparative, larger than New Brunswick. United Kingdom comparative, slightly larger than Scotland. United States comparative, slightly smaller than Maine. EU comparative, slightly smaller than Portugal. Land boundaries total 2,468 kilometers. Border countries: Armenia 566 kilometers, Armenia 221 kilometers, Georgia 428 kilometers, Iran 432 kilometers, Iran 700 kilometers, Russia 338 kilometers, Turkey 17 kilometers, coastline 0 kilometers. Azerbaijan borders the Caspian Sea. Maritime claims none. Terrain: large, flat lowland with Great Caucasus Mountains to the north, uplands in the west. Elevation extremes: lowest point, Caspian Sea -28 meters. Highest point, Bizardu-Zudagi 4,485 meters. Highest peak entirely within Azeri territory, Shardagi 4,243 meters.